That ain't good. I'm gonna show you how to fix that. And we're gonna do it right now. So here we have a sliding glass door, and below it we have a kickboard, piece of bottom door trim, and I've made videos like this in the past where I replace the trim, and it's a really simple process, but you might not know where to start, and I'm going to do something a little different on this one. When I replace exterior trim like this, I like to replace it with PVC or vinyl, because that, especially in a place like New England where I am, with snow and ice and changes of the season, it's just gonna last a lot longer. And you don't even have to paint it. One thing I have done when I do that is I use white head trim screws, and I've gotten a lot of comments, and I appreciate constructive criticism. And a lot of people say, why don't you use hidden fasteners? And I thought about it, might as well do that and show you how it's done. So that's what I'm going to do different in this video. I have a kit like this, hidden fasteners. I'll show you how to replace this trim and install it with these. So hope you enjoy. Step one is to remove this piece of trim. And obviously this is going to be really easy for me to get a pry bar in here and just start prying it away like this. It's also going to be easy because it looks like there's finish nails in here, but it might not be that easy for you. So here's some tips in case yours isn't this easy. If your trim is held in with screws, you can obviously use a screw gun, take the screws out, and the piece will pretty much just fall out. But a lot of times they're held in with, say, 8-penny nails, and those might be a little more tricky. So what I like to do is use a cat's paw, and what you do with it is you go to a nail. Obviously these are just finish nails, but you would hold it like this, dig right into that trim, and then you could get to the head of the nail and pull it out. Now let's say your trim is in good shape and it's nice and tight all the way around here. It's going to be hard to get a pry bar in here and pry it out. Obviously this is in terrible shape, and we're probably going to replace that afterwards, but if it's in good shape, you don't want to just put the pry bar in here and pry it out. So what you can do is take a long screw, like a 3-inch screw, and I'm going to put it right at the top here, and I'm going to go far enough in where I just go into the trim and not into the house, and then I can take a block so we don't mess anything up, and carefully just get that started like that. You can put another one down here. I don't know if it's going to work down here because it's kind of rotted. I'll try one right here. Use my block carefully. Now we'll start getting the bottom out of there. And then you could even take these and move them down, and then take a block here, use a pry bar or a hammer, and start prying that out. Just like that. And then you can even take the claw and pull right out like that. And then you can just continue that process all the way down. Luckily, I don't have to do that, but if you did, that's a good way to do it. And now that I got this started, I should be able to carefully but forcefully pull it out. Just like that. Now that the trim is gone, I like to inspect to see what type of flashing is there and make sure none of that rot extended into the actual house. And in this case, you see the door, this right here is solid. It's part of the door. There's no entry point for water here. And you can see this piece of metal flashing goes behind that. So if you think about water, the way it runs, if water got in on like the sides of the door or in the top and the water hit it, it would follow this path down here. And this doesn't look great. You would think that this would actually be behind here, but I'm not too worried about it because it looks like this extends back behind the ledger board. And I went along this whole thing, and the ledger is nice and solid, and this piece right here is just another piece of flashing for the decking. So you can take your hammer, go along, make sure that's solid back there, and it feels like it is, so I'm not too worried. And another thing to think about is when you have problems like this is to stop whatever caused the rot in the first place. In this case, they installed this awning here, which overhangs a little bit, and I think that's gonna help. And if they just keep this in mind, not to let snow build up here, but we're gonna be replacing it with PVC anyways, so that's not gonna rot. So they shouldn't have any problems, especially if nothing got back there to rot the actual house. So looking good. Now we can take out any of the fasteners. These are probably gonna break because they're rusty. Oh, look at that. And any of the other pieces that already broke off, just hammer them in. Make sure this is all clear. No obstructions. Some nails right here. Now we can clear all this out. Just get all that nastiness out of there. I'm gonna vacuum this right up. If I left all this, this is just something that could sit there to sit against the decking and absorb water and just kind of rot this away. Also, the decking is in good shape, which is a good thing too. Now I'm going to take a measurement for my trim, and I'm just going to be careful when I measure this. I don't want to make it too long. What can happen, especially if your J-channel's a little messed up like this, you might put the tape right here and push it, and then you're going to have a big gap right here. So what I would rather do is make it tight to the door, and then if I had to, whether I replace this J-channel or not, then I can push it tight there, and I can even put a nail in it from over here into the trim so that it's nice and tight over here. So I'm just going to keep that in mind when I'm measuring. In fact, I'll just hook on here, bring my tape down to the other side, and same thing, just be careful over here. I got 70 and 3/4, a little strong, and then I want the height or the width of this board, so I'm gonna hold it like this. I want it to be pretty tight, 7 3/4. I'll check it in a couple spots. That's more like 7 and almost 7.5. Yeah, 7 3/8. I measured this in those spots twice. Remember, measure twice, cut once, and it goes from 7 5/8 down to 7 3/8 over here. So that's a 1/4 inch of a difference. Not a huge difference, but you're gonna have a gap somewhere and it's gonna be uneven, and if you see it, it's gonna bother you at least. So what I'm gonna do, because I want it to be tight, I'm gonna rip it by hand from 7 3/8 to 7 5/8. The alternative is to rip it at the smallest measurement, 7 3/8, and just hold it up tight and have a gap at the bottom. But I don't want that. Let's make it nice. So of course, I did just buy a bigger chop saw or miter saw, and I just brought this one because I thought I was using 1x8 stock. 1x8 stock is 7 1/4, and we need 7 3/8 to 7 5/8. I could just do 7 1/4 and put it in there and have a gap, but this is what I want to do, so I'll make it work. First thing I'm going to do is kind of hack this to length. I'll cut it at 72, and then it'll be more manageable. But it's not going to go through all the way, so I got to do something a little tricky. That's what I mean by hacking it up. So I'm going to go a little further in because I'm going to end up cutting this like here. So about 1 inch in, and I will mark my 7 3/8 right here. And I just want to make sure that this is the good side. And I'm going to put the rip towards the bottom. And then I'll hold this in a little bit and mark my 7 5/8. Then I'll take something that's nice and straight, line up those marks. And because PVC trim is so floppy, I put a couple clamps here to help mark my line. So now I have this on my mark, and I can just mark this. Now this is something that's generally not recommended to do with a table saw, but I'm gonna rip this without a fence and rip it by hand, just following this line. And I'm gonna go a little past the line because it may not be a perfect cut. So afterwards I can sand it. If I take off more material, it'll still be the measurement that I took, hopefully. Another thing to know about PVC is it makes a mess. Now I'm just gonna clean up that cut. A belt sander would be preferable, but I have a random orbital, so I just gotta be careful. As I sand it, I'm just gonna follow that line and just make it nice and tight to that line and try and get this to be nice and straight. Now I can square one end. Take a measurement and mark it. 70 3/4, a little strong, which is basically an extra 1/16, in case you were wondering. I like to say a little strong. Before I put this in, if this channel wasn't here and it wasn't solid, let's say it was a front door and there was a gap here, what I would do is run a bead of silicone this whole way, just to prevent water from getting in there. I could down here, because I don't love this, I could do silicone right here, but then you run the risk of trapping water in here. So it hasn't rotted anything away here yet, so I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. And on the sides, you could do silicone as well, but again, I want water to escape, and they have a nice overhang now, and this should be fine. You could also silicone these holes if you were super concerned with it, but I am not. I also said that this cut I wanted towards the decking. It would probably be better hidden up top here, but that's okay. Hopefully I did a good job. And to get this in, I'm gonna just lean it like this. I'm gonna put the top tight first, but I want to make sure that these ends are good. So that's too far over. I'm also not in love with this little tab right here, but I don't want to cut it and mess up the door, so I'll just hold it even with that. Check the other side, make sure that's good. That side looks good there, so I'm just going to push it tight, and that's what you want. And then I can start pushing it in. I'm gonna just start it by hand. If I need a hammer, I will use one. I just want to be careful. Now I'm gonna use a nice smooth block. This is a cut off of the PVC, and just lightly tap this in. I'm gonna go nice and even. You don't want to go too much in one spot. If it's too tight, you're gonna have to take it out and trim it. I think this is gonna go. And then you just want to make sure it's tight at the top, which it does look like. Okay, so we're good. So this is what comes in the hidden fastener kit. You have your screws, obviously. They're like decking screws. And then you have your special bit that has kind of a stopper. So this will sink in and then create a hole for these. And these are collated, so if you're doing a ton of these and you want to go for efficiency, you can hammer them in, it'll come out, go on to the next one, hammer the next one in, but we don't need to go fast, do we? Let me show you how they work though. So I have my bit in a regular drill. You could use an impact, but just to be safe, I'm going to use just a regular drill. This might be a little tricky, but you shouldn't have to pre-drill these. Go in just like that. That'll sink in. Looks like it sinks in quite a bit. And then you take your caps, and I'm going to do something and intentionally show you what I don't want to do. I'm going to hold this right here and pop it in like that and hammer it in. And what I don't want to do is just use a regular hammer. I'm going to actually put some tape on this just so I don't mess anything up. Once I clean that a little bit, clean the whole board, shouldn't be able to see that. Right, it'll be much harder to see it anyways. So I'll start right here. I'll do one at the top, one at the bottom, and I'll go 2, 4, 6, 8. And that should be plenty. I'll start right here, just like this. And even though these are going to be hidden, I still want to put them nice and even so it looks nice. Then I can cap them. And I can do that same thing the rest of the way. I'm just gonna use some cleaner and clean this up. I got my dirty paws all over it. So there you go, a rotted piece of wood trim replaced with a brand new piece of PVC that's gonna last a lot longer, and hidden fasteners. It might be a little more expensive to do it this way, but it looks awesome. Depending on where the trim is, if you don't wanna see screws, I'll leave it up to you. But I hope this video helped. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Oh, same hole. Nice job. Try again. Nope. Nope. And then you can pull that screw right out and it won't do anything for you. And if they just keep in mind, I don't like this little lip that this has. That creates a gap. Did I cut that off? No, probably not, huh? Cut that out of there. Don't say that. Don't mention that. Oops. Used to be the good side. Good. Hi. And you just want to make sure it's... If you wanted to make these perfect, you can take the overall length, which is, we'll say, 70.5, and divide it by 3. I don't know why. Let's cut this part out. Try and hammer these flat, because I missed right here. And get a little dent. It's okay. Maybe it's not worth it to you. I mean, it's, I bet. And because PV trim, well, PV trim, yeah, okay.